What's going on, guys? Dan with PC Tech Hustle coming at you with another video. And today I got for you guys a video I've been kind of wanting to do for a little bit, is kind of hitting back on the Dell Optiplex scene. Now, as you guys may know, if you're subscribers of the channel, my couple Dell Optiplex videos that I did pretty well and seems to gain quite a bit of interest with the channel. So I wanted to kind of hit on that again, especially during the time of pandemic time, being that prices on computer parts are kind of rough. And I did have some comments in some of the videos saying that some people are having a hard time finding some parts, or some people wanted a little more explanation on some things here and there. So I felt it'd be a good idea to hit on that again, especially at a time of where people are really in need of computer parts, being schools back in session, etc., etc. So I really wanted to see, can we go back to eBay, kind of build up something similar or close, or maybe even a little different. So let's jump over to the screen here. Let's see what we can go find in the eBay world and see if we can still buy us up a Dell Optiplex that will be fit for 2020 gaming. Quick reminder of you guys, if you're new to the channel and you enjoy Dell Optiplex budget builds or any other PC tech related content, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and don't forget to tick that bell notification icon. That way you're informed of whenever I drop my latest content. Alrighty, so let's take a look at eBay. We got it pulled up here, or we're about to pull it up here on the screen, and let's just see what we can find. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm looking for really any kind of Optiplex, whether it be the first gen Optiplex that I built in one of my other videos, or pretty much any of the other things out there. So really I'm just looking for what is going to be the cheapest and workable solution for us. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to type in, as you can see, I've searched before, Optiplex, and what we're going to do here is what I want to look for a mini tower. I want that just because we want to be able to fit in a graphics card just like we did with the other ones and not have to do any kind of major modifications. We're going to select mini tower, which is the larger size. We're going to select a buy it now price because we want to buy it now, don't want to go through the bidding process. And then we're going to select price plus shipping lowest first. What looks like is coming up here some of the older Optiplexes like the 780. So let's scroll on through until we can find something that looks kind of more similar to what we built before. So let's see what we got here. Oh, 60 bucks. Okay, so this is a 3020. It's got an i3, so that's a bit on the weak side for a processor, but it is a 4th gen i3, which is quite a bit step up in generation for us as compared to the last one. 3.6 gigahertz, 8 gigs of RAM, an additional 500 gig. Actually, it even comes with, looks like, Windows 10 Pro key possibly. This is honestly a killer deal. Like, if you're just looking for a machine just to get off and running, if you need just a basic machine, this is a monster awesome deal. Let's see, actually it shows, okay, so yeah, with a i3, it typically comes with just 2 DIMM slots, so that's what we're looking at here with this i3. So that's okay. I mean, even 8 gigs, as we've seen in some of my other videos, 8 gigs gets you by relatively well. So I'm not really gonna budget in an additional 8 gigs to get us up to 16 gigs for something like this, but I'm gonna keep this as on the back burner. This is actually a smoking deal. So let's go ahead and just duplicate the tab here and see what other options we have out there. This is pretty darn good. And it's also free shipping, 60 bucks. So very awesome, coming from Las Vegas. So let's see what else we got here real quick. Just scroll on through. And I would stick away from the first gen Optiplexes because they have a weird cooling solution. The CPU cooler is, although a good cooler, it's a massive cooler, and it gets in the way of actually you being able to mount a video card in the 16x PCIe slot. So you're extremely limited with that, and I tend to kind of stay away from those. Let's see here, scrolling on through still. Ooh, $80. Okay, that's for an i5. So this is very similar, actually very, very similar to what we built up before. Looks like someone took the 3090 model and put in an i5, which this is in fact a true 3090 i3 system, because one thing you want to look at here is the amount of DIMM slots if you don't have a good view of the motherboard, which we do here actually. So the i3s typically come with just 2 DIMM slots, which isn't necessarily a breaking factor. It just kind of makes it a little harder sometimes to work with memory that comes pre-installed. So like this is 4 gigs, so it's like two gig modules. You want 8 gigs at I would say bare minimum for 2020 gaming. So you would have to replace these modules. So even though we're paying 80 bucks for basically a full system, we would still have to come back and replace some memory here, where versus the other one, we actually wouldn't have to. We could get by with the 8 gigs. So we're still winning with the other one. And that may be a one-off great price, but I found one before and I'm finding it again. So I think it goes without saying that you can find some good stuff out there if you're willing to kind of wait and look. Let's see, let's keep on scrolling. So actually what I'm gonna do is I've been scrolling here quite a bit and I've noticed tons of i3s, actually a lot of first gen i3s, which I'd say minimum you wanna stick probably with a first gen i5. Going below that, you're gonna be really CPU bound. So let's plug in the search parameters here, see if we can, I think you can list whether you want i7 or i5. Kinda wanna keep it generic if possible, because this is actually asking for many generations of i5. All right, so okay, i5 3rd gen, i5 4th gen, and 5th gen, and then let's also put in i7, which is probably going to be a bit of a stretch, but let's see what we can find here. So what we've put in here is we're ignoring the i3 models and trying to see if we can find a sweeter deal than that i3 3020 that we found that basically has everything in it. The only kind of weak side being an i3. So let's see what we can find here. $75 for a 3090 again, kind of similar scenario. Now it's getting a bit more expensive. Even still, okay, so $109 plus free shipping. What do we got here to offer? A i5 3470. That's pretty solid, honestly. So what are we gaining on this model versus the other? We are getting an i5. So we're gonna have more threads, but actually not quite as high clock speeds. I think this 3470, if we go look it up, I think these do boost up to higher than 3.6. Let's just see. Yeah, we got a, yeah, oh, they boost up to 3.6. So versus the i3, what we got basically is 2 cores, 4 threads versus 4 cores, 4 threads, a boost ratio of 3.2 to 3.6 on the i5, and the i3, let's actually just look that up, is a 4160. We are cross-comparing different generations though, keep that in mind. So the i3 4th gen versus the i5 3rd gen. The i3 is pretty close, so it basically maintains it operates at a 3.6 versus the i5 3rd gen that operates at a 3.2 to 3.6. So what is our price here again? Let's go back over to that. So we're $109. The only thing we're really winning from or gaining from this listing here is the fact that we have an i5. I can't really say that that's necessarily worth it over the i3 just because we're still dealing with the same amount of thread count and we're getting it almost half. So what you could say there with that, if you really want to spend the $110 here plus shipping, I believe. No, this is free shipping. You can upgrade to an i5 4th gen. And then you're really way and well beyond this 3010 3rd gen that has a 3470. So yeah, I'm gonna stay away from this. I think this deal isn't sweet enough. It's not quite as awesome as this. Okay, I found kind of a sweet deal, but it kind of depends. So we found a 3020 i5, so that is a 4th gen i5. So what we're looking at as far as generational gap of performance power here, let's just look that up. A Intel 4590 has 4 cores, 4 threads. All these i5s are all gonna just be straight 4 cores, no hyper threading. Its boost clocks are just a hair bit above the 3rd gen, like literally only 10 megahertz base and 10 more megahertz boost. So we're at 3.3 and 3.7. You will get a little bit of a factor of the process node being a bit more on the efficient side. So even though the clock speeds are a bit higher, you're also getting a little more just because of the next generational change in CPU power or in CPU production. But let's see what this shows here. We have a 3020 i5 4590, 8 gigs of RAM. So we said that's kind of what we would say is be our base minimum. It has Windows installed actually, which is interesting. On what? On a 1 terabyte drive. So that in a way is cool and all, but at the same time, so what does it fit for us, I guess? It allows us to have an operational system for right from the get-go. It has the RAM that we're kind of looking for. Again, we'd love to see 16 gigs, but I haven't seen any of that. And in order to get 16 gigs with this, we would have to buy 2 8-gig modules since it is a dual DIMM chassis or motherboard. So we're paying $130 for a 4-core, 4-thread, and 8 gigs. And the 1 terabyte hard drive, I wouldn't necessarily say stick with that and be done. Now, you can, but spinning drives, especially for games and stuff and load times and Windows, to load into Windows, you can get an SSD for that and you can get them cheap. And we've seen that through the previous Optiplex video. So I'm not really finding anything that honestly is sweeter than this original deal that we found, although it is an i3. And the main drawback being an i3, we are getting decent clock speeds. We are getting extremely cheap, $60 free shipping, and we are getting 8 gigs of RAM, plus an auxiliary 500 gig hard drive that we can use for game drive if we need to. Additionally, a Windows 10 Pro key, potentially. So, like I said, I don't think I'm gonna find a sweeter deal. This is a good deal, and know that, I think it goes without saying that when I produced the first Optiplex video, a lot of people made the comments, hey man, you got an awesome deal on that Optiplex. Well, yeah, I did. I mean, it was actually probably a little bit sweeter than this deal because I did manage to get 16 gigs of RAM on an i5, but it was a 2nd gen i5, though this is pretty good too. I'm gonna commit to this one. We're gonna close all these other tabs. We say, all right, we've found our Optiplex, right? What else do we need? We need to we're not gonna focus on RAM because we got 8 gigs. Like I said, that is the absolute bare minimum that I'd recommend. My suggested recommendation obviously being 16 gigs, and maybe we'll take a look at that at the end of the video, so that way you have some upgrade potential. So we're gonna stick to the bare bones, and honestly, I'm kind of curious too. Will this i3 perform on equal or near territorial levels of that previous Optiplex video that I built? The only thing being is that one had 16 gigs of RAM, but might remain to be seen. I'm kind of curious. So what else do we need? We need power, a power supply that is capable of supporting a video card that is more power hungry than what the power supply actually provides in the system and its current state. We need potentially an SSD. Actually, yes, we need an SSD. We want the fast boot times, we want the fast load times, and we need the GPU being the big thing. And honestly, I can't recommend it enough, and I'm gonna go back to it. RX 570 is the value king. It just gives that value to performance better than anything that's really out there, even brand new. You can buy them brand new for around the $130 to $150 mark, and they deliver. And you really can't find any other card out there, even an NVIDIA offering. And I'd say the closest thing you could potentially get to an NVIDIA offering that you can find kind of used on the market would be a GTX 970, and it still gets blown away by the RX 570, especially if you get an 8 gig model. So let's look for an RX 570 again and see if we can find one that'll fit well with this build. And also a key note here, let's find one that will fit without having to do any kind of modification, because I kind of got ripped on that in the other video. People saying, no, I don't have a drill, or you should have factored in a drill into the build cost. Okay, so let's find one that'll work. So we're putting in RX 570. Again, what we want to do is do a buy it now, and we want to do not best match, but we want to do price plus shipping lowest first. $50 for a cooler. Yeah, no thanks. Ooh, here we go. RX XFX AMD. Is this an 8 gig? Okay, this is a 4 gig. That's still not necessarily a deal breaker by any means. Let's see if we can find any 8 gig models that are, actually I think we can put that in as a search bar. Yes, we can. So let's put in 8 gig. Oh geez, that jumped up quite a bit in price. 8 gig may not be the way to go here. So this is another thing, and another reason why I want to make this video is parts are still pretty volatile. There's some things that are actually really cheap. Video cards, especially with a lot of the new gen stuff coming out, kind of floods the market in a sense, also creates a bit of a spike in asking prices, at least initially. But mainly the big thing we're dealing with here is I call the pandemic tax, being that a lot of people are just gobbling up parts, and it's driving up the demand, which is also driving up the cost. I've been able to get 8 gig cards easily for well under $130 before, and it doesn't really look like that's the case anymore, at least on eBay. You might be able to find your local parts markets better, and honestly, I would suggest that you look there first. eBay, I kind of use as, well, everybody has access to it, and it kind of makes part searching a little bit easier too. So let's remove 8 gig as a search parameter, because we know we're just not going to simply get what we want as far as price is concerned. All right, so back to this card, honestly. So what are we looking at here? An XFX 570 4 gig for $85 plus $11 shipping. So we got a total of $85 spent on a card. Now your shipping, obviously there is a shipping cost here, but that probably will vary depending on where you're located. So I don't really want to factor that in as a cost factor because that, as I mentioned, it varies. So $85, I know this card's good. I've used this card multiple times, and actually I know this card fits. Now remember from the first video too, we found out this card won't fit with the backplate, but that's actually a quick, easy fix. Remove the backplate. This backplate really isn't doing anything other than serving as an aesthetic piece. I've taken the backplates off these things. Actually, I got one sitting around here somewhere, but they don't serve any functional purpose. Although it is metal, there's no thermal pads on the back of it. It doesn't really pull heat off of the card. It's really just there to kind of make it look nice. So the great thing about that is we know that if we remove that backplate, we have a little bit more room to work with if we have some RAM interference. Now, actually speaking of that, let's take a quick look at the Optiplex really fast. Is there an inside shot? No, there is not. Darn. I was gonna say, I believe these, the only area you run into that problem is on the 2nd gen Optiplexes, which I was dealing with in my first video. So we might be completely okay to one, fit the card completely between the side of the chassis and the hard drive cage, as well as having the height clearance with the memory. If we don't have the memory clearance, then we know we can at least, at a minimum, remove that backplate and get it in there. So honestly, yeah, we've got $60 invested. Let's just do a quick tally here. Bring up calculator. We have total of $60 on the Optiplex plus an $85 on the video card. We spent $145 and we just basically narrowed down the two most expensive things in the build. Next, what we need is power supply, and we also need an SSD. Now, I'm gonna stick away from eBay on that stuff, mainly because I don't really wanna buy a secondhand power supply. It's just a bit on the dangerous side, and I really wouldn't advise that with you guys unless you know how to properly test one and ensure it's okay. It's best to just, hey, here's what works. So speaking of what we know what works, let's go to Amazon real quick, and let's go here to thermal take for $42. So the price is still down decent. This power supply I've seen go as low as almost $30, like $32-ish. So it's up a little bit, and that's also again due to the quote-unquote pandemic tax. Let's see if we can find another one I really like to pivot to if I can is an EVGA power supply. So let's look at EVGA BR450. Doesn't even have a price. I'm afraid if we see all buying options, it's going to be outrageous. Yeah, almost over $80 in some cases. Yeah, no, this is one I definitely recommend over the thermal take if you can find it cheap, but it's almost impossible. Actually, let's go to PC Part Picker to see if we can source things a bit easier on us. So let's go to System Builder. Let's do Start New, and we're just doing Start New to go find a couple things that we have left in the build. So let's go to Power Supply, and what we're looking for is anything in the 500. We'll even leave it at upwards of 600, but in the 400 to 600 watt range. And basically I just want to look at everything and just narrow in on price, lowest price, and things that are not cheap garbage. So again, we got our Thermaltake Smart Series showing up as probably the first layer of power supply I would recommend. I don't know what the heck any of this stuff is before it. So we got the Thermaltake Smart Series showing up as one of the top ones on the list. We do see this EVGA part here. What is this EVGA BW? Yeah, oh, W3, 450 watt, 80 plus. Okay, only out of Best Buy. It might be like a Best Buy exclusive part. Is there any other pictures? I don't know what this thing looks like. Looks like it's got all black cables though. I'm kinda liking that versus the Thermaltake one, because the Thermaltake one does have those ugly ketchup and mustard cables. Let's see if we can find this somewhere, like maybe at least on Amazon, just to kind of get a better idea of what it looks like. They may not even sell them there. Maybe not. That's probably why I'm only seeing a Best Buy listing. So you might want to check your local Best Buy. So what we'll do is we'll just say, since this price actually is similar, $45 versus the Thermaltake one, we'll just use the Thermaltake as a filler. I might decide to go with something else that is in this price range though. And I know I can get it on Amazon, so we'll just say $43 for the Thermaltake part. Again, let's verify. All right. Yeah, $43. So let's go back to our calculator. Plus $43, 188 bucks. We actually might even come in cheaper. In fact, I know we will. A lot cheaper than the original Dell Optiplex video I did back with the 2nd gen. The only thing we have left to buy is a SSD. So let's look that up here. I'm gonna stick with a 240 gig since our listing, actually it comes with a 500 gig spinning drive, which you have room for Warzone and some other things, so that could be used as an auxiliary game drive or anything else to keep off of your SSD for other games. Yeah, I would say we don't need to go crazy bonkers on storage like with the other Optiplex video I did. Let's just stick with that, maybe that ADATA 240 gig. Let's just type in 240 gigabyte SSD. Inland, that's a good brand. Actually, it's been a while since I used one of those. The ADATA drive not coming up here. Huh, wonder why. Let's just look. So Inland is a $28 drive. Let's look. ADATA. You can tell I've searched it before. Okay, that's that 128 drive. Is that it? Oh, maybe they're out of stock. It looks like they possibly are. Yikes. That's interesting. This must have been bought up recently because those are not $40 drives. Bought them for like 25 bucks before. So we might just be hitting Amazon at a time where this ADATA drive is just out of stock and buying options aren't as great. This is interesting. Well, haven't stumbled across that before, so let's go back to this Inland. I mean, we're only gonna save like a couple bucks anyway, and these are pretty decent drives too. So 240 gig. Now what are we looking at? $28. Our calculator, we've already got factored up the Optiplex itself, the GPU. We aren't having to get extra RAM because it comes with 8 gigs already. As we said, could be an operational minimal. And we just found our power supply, and now we are gonna add $28. We came in $4 cheaper. So $4 cheaper than the original Optiplex video. But again, that shows that you can recreate that. I think that was the big driving factor here is you can recreate that. And I wanted to put that out there too, initially, to show that you can recreate that. So here we are 4, 5, 6 months later, and we're recreating it actually at a time where it would be, I would think, the most difficult to recreate that. So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna buy these parts and we're gonna put us together another Dell Optiplex gaming PC. And I'm really actually interested to see how well that i3 does versus my original video. Alrighty guys, so I'd say this about concludes this video. I kind of actually thought about this and I want to break this into a 2-part series, being that this video basically covered how to get a Dell Optiplex build off the ground, how to go about choosing parts on eBay, seeing what type of models to go after, kind of the intricate tech details of that, etc, etc. And the reason I wanted to do that, because through the comments of some of my other Optiplex videos, I got a lot of questions in regards to what types of models will work, what types of graphics cards will work in particular models, what are the kind of intricate tech details or challenges that revolve around those. So I felt going back and making a video about that and taking you guys through the raw process of me actually going on eBay, picking out the parts, and coming up with a build strategy for my next machine would give you guys a good idea and maybe even give you an opportunity to follow along and do the same. So with that said, stay tuned for part 2, which I should have out pretty soon following this video. I've already got my parts on order, and actually I got a little bit of a surprise. I bought a power supply that we'll see if it's sketchy or not. I may end up making a separate video about, but maybe it could be an option for another go-to power supply for my channel. I typically recommend some of the same kind of devices out there, so I'd like to add another one to the repertoire if I possibly can. But lastly, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you do the YouTube thing, right? Give me a like if you enjoyed this content, and let me know in the comments if you thought my build decisions were sound and they are easily followed and you can go and take and run with that, or maybe if you decide I did something completely bonkers. Also, I want to make mention too, in the description I'll have links for all the things that I chose and some potential affiliate marketing links through Amazon too. That way you guys can go snag up those parts that we bought on Amazon, and it also helps give a little bit of a kickback to the channel, so that way, you know, I can keep producing this content for you guys. But other than that, thanks for tuning into this one. I appreciate your time, and I'll catch you in the next one.